Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking how organizations can basically take back control when the rules of the game just suddenly change. We're talking about a challenge that pretty much every successful business eventually faces, right? Dealing with complex new regulations. I mean, how do you protect your operations and keep your growth on track when the policy environment literally shifts right under your feet? Well, you're in the right place, because we're going to explore a step-by-step methodology to do exactly that. So, let's dive right in by putting you directly into the shoes of a company facing a massive regulatory threat. It's a scary place to be, for sure. And the big question we've got to ask ourselves right out of the gate is this: can stakeholder engagement actually influence a regulatory outcome? Like when government policy is bearing down on you, can you realistically change the trajectory, or is it just a lost cause?
Imagine a government regulator suddenly announces a public consultation on proposed rules. Let's be real, this is way more than just a minor administrative headache. These new rules, they're going to severely drive up compliance costs across the board. Your operational efficiencies immediately put at risk because your teams are scrambling to adapt. Your careful multi-year investment planning gets completely disrupted, your complex supply chain management faces massive delays waiting for new certifications, and ultimately, your long-term business growth is directly threatened. For any executive team, this is a five-alarm fire that demands immediate, highly strategic action.
So the absolutely crucial point here is contrasting how organizations typically react to this fire versus how they actually should react. The traditional and honestly failing method is simply waiting for a final decision before you react. It's waiting until a consultation period closes to finally raise your hand and, complain about the burden. We have to contrast that failing method against the proactive choice, identifying stakeholders and engaging early. This mindset shift, going from reactive complaining to proactive engagement, is literally the foundation of everything we're about to discuss.
Which brings us to Section 1, the Linkonize strategy, and its 5 steps to navigate regulatory change.
You see, this strategy isn't about guessing or just crossing your fingers. It's a highly systematic approach designed by Linkonize to help you take control of the narrative way before the ink dries on new legislation. The 5 vital steps we're going to walk through are 1. Stakeholder mapping, 2. Understanding priorities, 3. Relationship building, 4. Evidence-based recommendations, and 5. Coalition building. Let's break these down one by one and see how they practically apply to saving our hypothetical company from this whole regulatory crisis.
Step 1 is stakeholder mapping. Basically, this means identifying the broader network of individuals and groups who influence the regulatory process, far beyond just the primary regulator. Because honestly, the biggest mistake companies make is walking into a policy battle thinking the regulator is the absolute only voice in the room that matters. Actually, scratch that. It's more like thinking they're making decisions in a total vacuum. But they don't. Policymakers listen to a massive array of advisors, advocates, and experts before drafting a single sentence. There are always many key players on the board here.
And that ecosystem of influence, it is remarkably vast. You don't just have government departments to worry about. You've got parliamentary committees scrutinizing the minute details, academic experts weighing in with very specialized research, industry associations aggressively protecting their sectors, and consumer representatives fighting for the general public. They all have the ear of the decision makers. If you don't map every single one of these influential entities, you're pretty much flying completely blind into the negotiation.
Moving to step 2, we really have to understand what these diverse groups actually care about. And guess what? They care about wildly different things. Everything from consumer protection and environmental impact to market competition and overall industry stability. You have to understand these different lenses so you can frame your recommendations properly. You really want your solutions to align with broader public interests rather than just walking in and complaining about your own commercial concerns. I mean, if you only talk about your shrinking profit margins, you're going to lose the room immediately.
Now, as we hit step 3 on relationship building, there's a golden rule you absolutely must internalize, and it's this: the objective is dialogue, not confrontation. Instead of approaching stakeholders aggressively when the consultation is already closing, you've got to participate in industry forums, share research constructively, and build those relationships early on. You want to be viewed as a trusted resource and an indispensable partner, not just some corporate adversary throwing a tantrum over new compliance costs. For step 4, instead of blindly opposing regulation, you've got to present practical, workable solutions. And to do this effectively, you need 3 distinct types of evidence to really drastically increase your credibility. First up, economic impact assessments. These show policymakers the tangible market realities of their proposals, which prevents them from making decisions based purely on theory. Second, independent research. This adds objective third-party credibility so your argument doesn't just look like, corporate spin.
And third, bringing in international best practices. This provides proven, safe policy alternatives that have already worked elsewhere. You're bringing undeniable facts to the table, not just complaints.
Finally, Step 5 teaches us the incredible power of coalition building. This means identifying and collaborating with other stakeholders who share your exact interests to create broad sector support. Look, if your company is standing completely alone, it's remarkably easy for a regulator to dismiss you as just some localized outlier who doesn't want to follow the rules. But by working collaboratively with professional bodies, academic institutions, and business coalitions, you prove to policymakers that your concerns are shared across the entire sector. There is real, undeniable leverage in numbers.
All right, moving on to Section 2, achieving a better outcome through the results of strategic engagement.
So, what actually happens to our hypothetical company after rigorously deploying these 5 steps? Did all this meticulous mapping and coalition building actually save the business? Well, the results absolutely speak for themselves. Constructive early engagement leads directly to an improved, highly practical policy process. First off, policymakers receive balanced input from multiple credible sources. Second, those terrifyingly fast implementation timelines, they get adjusted to be way more realistic for the industry, which saves millions in rushed compliance efforts. Third, the burdensome reporting requirements we initially worried about are refined to be manageable. And fourth, clearer industry guidance is issued long before the rollout. This is a massive, quantifiable win for our company.
When you compare these two distinct mindsets side by side, the right choice is just overwhelming. Late reaction and confrontation breeds distrust and almost always fails to change the mandate. You're just a headache to the regulators at that point. But on the flip side, early involvement and evidence-based collaboration builds the exact kind of trust necessary to actually move the needle on policy. It transforms you from being a target of regulation into a co-author of the solution. It's a night and day difference in how government relations and public affairs should be handled.
Let's head into Section 3, Lessons for your organization with the Linkonize blueprint. So how can you take these highly strategic concepts and apply them to your own organization's public affairs strategy? Well, this is exactly where a comprehensive, integrated approach really matters. Linkonize integrates stakeholder engagement directly with public affairs consulting, legislative tracking, deep stakeholder intelligence, strategic communications, and reputation management. By combining all these powerful tools into one cohesive strategy, you are fully empowered to anticipate policy developments way before they make headlines. And, engage constructively from day one rather than scrambling in a total panic at the final hour.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to really consider for your own business operations today. Ask yourself honestly, are you waiting for regulations to happen to you, or are you proactively shaping them? Don't let unchecked policy dictate your company's future. I highly encourage you to start building your own proactive strategy today by visiting www.linkonize.com to transform your raw stakeholder intelligence into sustainable long-term success. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope you found it incredibly valuable, and we'll see you next time.